3.5 million years ago, the human animals stopped swinging in trees and started walking on the ground. Each human brought down with them their own unique way of communicating, their own unique manner in which they display emotion, and their own conflicts and ego. With 8 billion of these human beings walking around the same earth, you may have a strong, compelling urge to run back up into the safety of the trees. But don't. Instead, learn. Learn how to live among the humans.
And yabba dabba do, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. Welcome. I see that I have 7 new subscribers. So welcome. If you are a new subscriber to this channel, you might want to start with the video culture. Everything builds upon that first video. So it's like learning addition to do algebra. But welcome to the new subscribers. Dynamite. Today we will be discussing conflict and conflict management, how to manage that conflict. Boy, oh boy, there's tons of books out there. You walk into Barnes and Nobles, you'll find a whole section on conflict management. People make a living doing corporate conflict management. Couples therapists, that's what they do, conflict management among couples. So that's what we are going to be talking about today. So let's get started, shall we? First of all, what is conflict? Conflict sounds like a very bad word, a negative word. But conflict is natural to this world as breathing or water or air. I know, bad examples, those are essential. But conflict isn't necessarily essential, but conflict is going to exist. Why does conflict exist? Well, we have to go straight to the definition of actually what conflict is. And it's really not a big thing. Conflict is actually a disagreement between two individuals that perceive that their goals are incompatible. Wow, doesn't that confuse you more? Two individuals whose goals are incompatible form conflict. So what does that mean? Well, if the two people don't even know each other, then who cares what their goals are? But if two people are in a relationship and they both have different goals, that is going to start conflict. If one person's goal is reached, meaning the other person won't be able to reach their goal. What do I mean? Let's break it down real simple. I want Italian food tonight. Sheila wants Spanish food tonight. We can only order from one place because obviously, well, you get Italian, you get Spanish. But if we could only order from one place, if we get Spanish food, I don't get my Italian food. If we get Italian food, Sheila doesn't get her Spanish food. That's a conflict. No big deal, right? No big deal. But it is a big deal. Conflict causes tremendous amounts of problems. But let's get it this way. The conflict itself does not cause the trouble. Because like I just said, conflict is everywhere all the time for everyone. So if conflict were the trouble, we would have a lot of troubled people walking around this earth. It's the way that we approach and we handle the conflict, or we don't handle the conflict. That's what causes the problem, not the conflict itself. Let's get that straight. It's not the conflict. It's the way people handle the conflict. It's just like we learned with emotions. Everybody's going to get an emotion of anger. That's not what's important. What's important is the way that you handle that emotion. Well, the conflict isn't necessarily important. It's the way that you handle the conflict in a relationship that will be important. So, conflict. One wants to go out, the other wants to stay in that night. You can't have both. One person wants to go out, they're not going to go out by themselves and leave their wife or husband at home, but the other person doesn't want to go out. There's a problem. Both goals cannot be achieved. Um, so, simply put, that's what it is. A lot of myths out there about conflict, a lot of misunderstandings about it. One of the first ones is that conflict is best avoided, that time will solve the conflict. I love this. I love that time heals all wounds. Or if you just don't talk about it, it will go away. I remember I was talking to Sheila about something that happened to me, and it wasn't devastating, but it was bad. And Sheila said to me, "Oh my God, why didn't you tell me that?" And I said, "I don't know. I just didn't tell you." She said, "Well, when did that happen? Yesterday?" And I went, "No, it happened like in first grade." And she was like, "First grade, and you're still talking about it?" Yeah, I am. Why? Because it was never resolved. It was never resolved. So if you're going around holding a grudge from seventh grade, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a psychopath. It means that it was never resolved. I mean, go to your high school reunion and go confront the person. I would never do that. I should have done that. It's too late now. Now I would look like a maniac. But yeah, if I really did want to resolve it, I might look up those people and let them know, ask them for an explanation of why they treated me the way they did. I could imagine that the person would go, "I was in first grade. How would I know?" But as amusing as that story is, that if something does not get resolved, it doesn't go away. The people that say, "Oh, please, that was a long time ago," well, maybe you're that way. But if things aren't resolved, they remain. Why wouldn't they remain unless you're forgetful? But especially in a relationship. Let's not talk about first grade. Let's talk about last month, last week, last night. You got to resolve these things. So conflict is not to be avoided because the conflict's there. So actually, your textbooks will say conflict should not be avoided. Well, conflict can't be avoided. It's there. The management of conflict cannot be avoided. If so, you've got some problems. The next, that conflict is a sign of a deeply troubled relationship. No, it's not. If I want Italian food and Sheila wants Spanish food, it's not the end of the relationship. Uh, that simple. No, it's not. Uh, it's disagreement. Why wouldn't we disagree with people? Just because we love somebody doesn't mean we're not going to still disagree with them. Uh, Another one is that conflict damages a relationship. No, conflict doesn't damage a relationship. Conflict will damage a relationship if the management of the conflict sucks. Then it will indeed damage it. But sometimes me and Sheila get into a conflict, and I'm about to let the anger out, let the beast out, and then I remind myself, "You're a professor, damn it." Uh, and all of a sudden, I'll say, "Well," and I'll take an approach of actually managing the conflict, trying to solve it. And when I'm done with it, uh, I actually feel good about it, and I feel good about Sheila, and Sheila feels good about me. Actually, once you resolve the conflict, it's very strange. You actually feel like an adult. No, you actually feel like you get closer with your partner after you resolve a conflict the correct way. I make these videos in the morning, so I know I'm always drinking coffee. Sorry about that. If I didn't, I'd be sleeping. I would just be like this. You would turn on your video, and I'd be like that. All right. Uh, Now the next one is how can I say this? I don't totally agree with it, but well, you'll see what I mean. Conflict uh, has to have a winner and a loser. That's the myth. All right. So in conflict, there's a winner and a loser. Obviously, if I eat Italian and Sheila eats Spanish, if I'm going to eat Spanish or she's going to eat Italian, one of us are going to lose. How can we both win? Unless she has the Italian and I have the Spanish, which is a possibility, but in the scenario I gave you, it doesn't. Um, what I think about it as it's almost, I just don't like it saying, oh, well, it's a win win. Well, no, somebody's not going to get what they want. But sometimes a win win is when somebody doesn't get what they want right then, but later they will. Kind of like a vacation. You only have 2 weeks a year. You want to go here, your partner wants to go here. So you kind of like a lot of times with new couples, the holidays, which relatives are you going to spend that first Christmas as a couple with? Both parents might want you to come. There's going to be a conflict. Somebody's not going to get to visit their parent. Uh, but I guess the closest you can come to a win-win on that, and believe me, I'll teach you how to solve conflict a little better than this one. But I'm just talking about that win-win notion. Yeah, I guess this year we do your mom's, and next year we do my mom's. That's a win-win, so to speak. But for that one instant, you're not getting what you want. Sometimes a win-win to me is a lose-lose. I want Italian. I want Spanish. You know what? We'll go to a diner and eat American burgers. It's kind of you both lose. Uh, but we'll talk more about that win-win thing when I talk about the actual managing of the conflict. So those are some myths you might have heard. That conflict is best avoided. Nah. It's a sign of a troubled relationship. No. That it can damage a relationship. No. And that it has to have a winner or a loser. No. You both can win. And like I pointed out, you both can lose. All right. Like I said before, it's not the conflict that causes the trouble. It's the ways in which you approach and then deal with that conflict that causes the trouble. Um, the six major issues of conflict that social scientists have come up with. I'll give you what eHarmony says, but this is what the social scientists say are the six major issues of conflict between partners. The first one is intimacy. Intimacy includes everything from holding hands to kissing each other goodbye, to actually having sex with one another, um, hugging each other, affection, with words as well. That seems to be a major issue of conflict. Another one is what we call power issues. Uh, Power issues are somebody makes demands more than they should. Uh, it might mean the equality in a relationship as well. Uh, it could be the different friends they have in that power category. Um, and also, it might be the time. They might monopolize time with the TV set, with the radio, with the resources at the house, what have you. They have the power to, use this, and you can wait till they're done. Another major issue is personal flaws, and we'll talk about that. Personal flaws, stuff like you drink or you curse. Another one is what we call personal distant issues. Personal distant issues are stuff like you're always late when you meet the person, um, you're absent, you spend way too much time with your friends instead of them. So you distance yourself from that person. Um, Another issue is social issues cause conflict. These days, one of the biggest social issues that cause conflict, political. Political. Uh, Also, parents can cause social conflict. Other people's parents, mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, stuff like that, sisters. And the last one, distrust issues because the person either cheated on you, talks to old girlfriends or boyfriends, or has a history of lying to you. So those are the six major issues of conflict: intimacy, power, personal flaws, power distance issues, social issues, and distrust. Uh, what does eHarmony say? I told you, eHarmony, they sell their information. They don't sell your name. I don't know who you're dating, but boy, I get all the research from eHarmony, and they gather a lot of it and they sell it. That's the way they can make a lot of money. Uh, but eHarmony has 9 issues at the heart of couples conflicts. Free time, meaning you don't have enough time for me. That's what we talked about, that personal distance. Free time, money issues, household chores, politics, sex, children, pets, religion, jealousy, and stress. Uh, we could talk about each one of those, but I don't really think we have to. The surprising one isn't so much children. Yeah, children are a lot of conflict. Everything from the first time, whether the mother's going to take drugs when she's pregnant, uh, during birth, whether the kid is going to get baptized, or even if they're not Christian, what other religion the kid is going to be raised. I mean, you have a child, that's just bringing in a whole ball of conflict. You might as well name the kid Conflict. Go on, Conflict, let's go. Uh, the children I always knew was a conflict, of course. But I find pets. Pets are on the list of eHarmony. That means when they interviewed people that broke up, they simply said, "Why'd you break up?" And so many people wrote, "Pet." How could pets cause it? Well, I know. We foster cats, man. There have been as many as 4 or 5 cats in our house at one time. I live in Greenwich Village, man. It's like a 600 square little place, man, apartment. Um, where to put the litter box, who's going to feed the cats, who's going to wash the bowls. I can imagine having a dog in the winter in New York City. Who's going to walk the dog at 6 in the morning when it's 3 degrees outside? So, yeah, children, no surprise. Pets, I was surprised by that, but then I thought about my own experience. I'm like, yeah, pets can cause conflict. You see what's weird, man? All this stuff. Isn't it funny when a couple wants to get closer? Now you know what's so funny when somebody says, "Well, let's improve this relationship. Let's have a kid." Uh, well, we're not ready for a kid yet. Let's get a pet. Well, they're both on the list of conflict. So have fun. Both of them are going to give you conflict if you're not ready for it. All right. Boom, boom, boom. What do we got going? Yeah, I'm looking down here. I got my notes, man. I got them all color coded. Look at those notes. Those are something, man. So one other little thing I gotta hit you up on it is an allergen. An allergen in science is I don't know. I guess it's stuff that's in the air, like allergens. So like pollen and stuff will give you allergies, allergens. So it's something that affects you. A social allergen is something that affects you, that bugs you about the other person. So a social allergen is a personal habit of your partner that you find annoying. Basically, put that those cause a lot of conflict. Uh, you know, one of these. I almost died showing you that example. I mean, the other partner. Do you got to go every time you drink a cup of coffee? You gotta jingle your keys every time you stuff like that. Oh my God, that coffee almost killed me. Uh, So yeah, a little personal habit, not hanging up your clothes. I know when I was first met Sheila, I had a real gross habit that if my nose was full, since I played a lot of sports, it's not like you're on the baseball field and your nose is full of dust and you go time out and you run and you get a Kleenex and you blow your nose. You go like that. As gross as it sounds, we call it blowing snot. Uh, wow, that drives Sheila crazy. I don't do that anymore, but yeah, that did cause a lot of conflict when I used to do it. So no more. Uh, so each person will constitute what pisses them off, what their social allergen is. That's an easy conflict to solve. I told Sheila, carry Kleenex. Now I carry them. Uh, for men, we have we took surveys. What is a social allergen for men? What do women do on a personal habit that annoys men? Uh, well, the silent treatment, number one. Uh, bringing up old grievances was number two. Number three was being too critical. And number four was being too stubborn. So if you really want to kind of learn from these videos, uh, um, and you're a woman, and later I'll give what women say about men. Uh, you might want to take heed to this, and you might want to listen to what people find annoying, the other gender. Again, for men, silent treatment. When women give them the silent treatment, when women bring up old grievances, when women are being too critical, and when women are being too stubborn. For women, what are the social allergens that men give them? Uh, Number one, men forgetting dates of importance. Yeah, that was always on the sitcoms when I was a kid. Oh my God, the guy forgot the wife's anniversary or the birthday. It was always the guy that forgot. So I guess that is reality because that's what the survey says. Uh, Forgetting dates of importance, not working hard enough, especially nowadays. A lot of women complain about guys sitting at home playing video games. Uh, Burping, that made the list. Farting, that made the list. Uh, and looking at other women. So those are so we can learn from what annoys the other gender. All right, let's look at some of these principles of interpersonal conflict. Good old principles of it. Um, So let's begin with the first principle. Okay, the first one is conflict is inevitable. We already said that. That's how I opened up this lecture video. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's a disagreement. Two people can't get their goals. Happens all the time. Um, This morning I went out, one parking space in a nice shaded underneath a tree. Right away, both cars, mine and another person, came both from different angles. We both wanted that spot. That's why it's hard to be a win-win situation. I know that's the way I'm supposed to teach it because they do talk about win-win, but if two people want the same space, uh, the only way it could be a win-win is if you both park in a different space. And then that's kind of lose-lose, which I guess is win-win. I don't know. But what have you. It is inevitable. That's the point I'm making. All right. The second principle, um, that conflict can happen in all communication forms. Boy, doesn't that sound big? Conflict can happen in all communication forms. What does that mean? It means conflict can happen in person or it can happen online. Boy, oh boy, I don't have to explain that. Go into Twitter, go see. There's conflict all over the place. I one time said one thing. I don't know. I, I think it was a picture. I know it was. It was a picture of Fourth of July on a street where I grew up, and it all had American flags. And I think I simply innocently wrote, "Good thing to see my hometown is still patriotic." Oh my goodness, people are writing patriotic in a country that kills people, blah blah. I'm like, oh my goodness. Talk about conflict. My goal was to spread joy with this picture. Their goal was to say how bad the country was. Both goals could not be reached. So conflict happens in all communication forms. Basically means in person and online. Uh, the third one, conflict can have a negative or a positive effect. So if you are having a conflict with your partner, it could be very negative or very positive. The way it could be negative is one of the biggest things is a lot of people argue with their partner not to solve the conflict. Yeah, dig this. A lot of couples fight not to solve the conflict. They fight to hurt one another. They want to make the other person feel bad. They want to punish the other person. Maybe they're punishing the person for something that happened 3 days ago that they never brought up because, I don't know, maybe they were in public or something. Maybe there's hidden feeling. Maybe there's stuff that's not resolved. Remember that resolve thing I was talking about? But think about it. I know a lot of people that when they argue, it's almost like they're not even trying to solve the issue. It turns into a lecture about what a bad person I am or what I did wrong. As soon as somebody says, you always, but what do you mean I always? I thought we were trying to resolve this conflict. Now you're telling me about my behavior. Well, if we're going to do that, let me talk about your behavior, and then we're never going to solve the actual conflict. So be very careful. A lot of times in business, you solve the conflict. You don't try to hurt the person. You're arguing to solve the conflict. With relationships, I would like to think it's about 70-30, where 70% of the people actually try to solve the conflict and 30% are trying to push each other's buttons. In family, I find it's reversed. I find when people argue with family members, they're kind of hurting them. Maybe for something, maybe for the way that their brother or their sister treated them when they were a kid. But I find with family, when they have conflicts and you talk to family members, it's usually they start talking about not what the problem at hand is. They start talking about conflict that happened years ago that was never resolved, and they're trying to hurt the other person. So that is when it is extremely negative. Another way that conflict can be negative is it wastes time. You know, I got family, I got friends who are dying. I mean, I've had that my whole life, but but now it's kind of happening a lot more and a lot higher numbers, and you start to realize that life. They always say out of everything, what is the most valuable? Gold, silver, Bitcoin, time. Time is the most valuable asset we have. Nobody, when they die, says, I wish I had more gold. I wish I had more Bitcoin. But they do probably say, I wish I had more time. At least they say that in the movies. Uh, yeah. It wastes a lot of time, especially if you're given that silent treatment and stuff like that, or you close yourself off. Uh, how could it be positive? How can conflict be positive? Well, if you actually examine what the problem is and then solve the problem, uh, it stops the hostilities from festering. So, stopping hostilities from festering. Those are good words, two great words, hostility and festering. Isn't that a great word, festering? Uh, yeah, because it's not resolved. If it's not resolved, you bet it's going to fester. Uh, you know, if a person comes home from working and their partner is all happy to see them and the person that came home goes into a room, shuts the door, and talks on the phone for 2 hours, and the other person doesn't say anything but is pissed off about it, that conflict doesn't get resolved. In fact, the person that shut themselves off to make the phone call for 2 hours, they might think it's okay because you never said anything. I had talked earlier in one of the other videos that silence is permission. If I go up to your head and go bink, and you don't say anything, I guess I could keep going up to your head and going bink because you didn't say anything. So um, it shows that you approve of the behavior. So you've got to actually confront the conflict right there. Uh, all right. So another one. This is a big one. This is a huge one. Let's talk about if I was a couple therapist and I was practicing. The first thing that a therapist has to do is find out whether or not that the conflict is a content issue, that's a content issue, or a relationship issue. So, what does that mean? Let's take an example that is a stereotypical example, and it's usually a gender type bias. This is what I mean. Uh, let's say there's a conflict, and the couple comes to me, and I say, "What seems to be the problem?" And they say, "He's always got the controller. He's always got the remote control. He always controls. It's always about the remote. In fact, when he goes to the bathroom, he carries the remote control with him, so I can't change the channel. It's the remote." Well, they keep talking about the remote. If I were to take the remote controller away from them, they would still have a problem because they're saying that the issue they have is a content issue. A content would be the actual remote control. No, if I took that remote control away, they'd still have a problem because it's a relationship issue. It's an issue of control. If we were to talk about other ways that the guy is controlling beside the remote control in the relationship, we'd probably find a lot of examples. So they think it's all about the remote control. It's not. It's a relationship issue, not a content issue. On the other hand, let's say that a couple comes in and I say, "What's the problem?" And the guy says, "She has a motorcycle. She bought a motorcycle a month ago and she's zipping around on a motorcycle. I'm scared she's going to kill herself." Then I turn to the woman. I say, "Is this true?" She says, "No. You know what the problem is? He's just insecure. He thinks that he should be the one driving a motorcycle, that a woman shouldn't drive a motorcycle. So he's feeling inferior as a man, and he thinks that I am now trying to dominate the relationship." Well, they think that's a relationship issue. Now I turn to the man, I say, "Is that true?" And he might say, "No, that thing goes like 100 miles an hour. We have 3 children. I do not want my wife dying. I love her. I do not want my children to grow up without a daughter. I mean, without a mother. She could get a sports car, a convertible. It's got nothing to do with her being superior and more manly than me because she's on a bike. I don't want her to die. I love her." Okay, more than likely, if I remove the motorcycle, it's going to work because it was a content issue. It wasn't about a relationship issue. So you could see from a therapist's mind how some people can walk into your office and have it completely messed around. They might think they have a huge relationship problem. And it's like, "No, dude, just get rid of this and you're going to be fine. It was a content issue." At other times, they say, "Well, I just want to get rid of this and everything will be okay." No, 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 because it's not a content issue, it's a relationship issue. So that's the first thing you always want to kind of look at. The first thing, you've got to know how to approach the issue So you got to know first off whether it's a content issue or a relationship issue. Um, all right. Um, Now, let's talk about actually conflict management, how to manage the conflict. Now, this is relationship conflict. So if you're hearing about conflict management, thinking this is about like corporate conflict management, no, it's about relationship. And it's fairly simple. Things are very, very simple. I mean, apologizing is a simple act, though it's one of the hardest things for some people to do. So the same thing with conflict management. Let me repeat that because it's worth repeating. That apologizing, I'm sorry. It's not hard. I'm sorry. 3 syllables. But it's not hard to say, but it's hard to do. Conflict for some people. Conflict management is very easy. The process is quite simple, but actually doing it, a lot of people don't want to. The first thing you've got to do, so how do we manage conflict? Well, the first thing is you've got to set the stage. We've been setting the stage. We've known this since we were little kids. If we wanted something from our parents, we might ask our sibling, is mom and dad in a good mood? You see, you want to set the stage. Already you get a feeling of where I'm going with this. If if your sibling tells you no, you're not going to do it. You're going to wait until they are in a good mood. Believe it or not, the time to solve conflict is not when you're both in bad moods. You both have to be ready to argue. Now, when I say argue, and I'm going to start using that word, up till now I didn't want to, because argue has a stigma of negativity when we argue. But like I've explained in other videos, arguing is just persuading. Arguing is you argue your case in court. You don't go to the judge, listen, you mother. No, you argue your case intelligently with evidence. So you got to be ready to argue, but that kind of means you've got to be in a good frame of mind. The time to argue is not when you're in bad mood. So you want to set the stage. First of all, if you're online and you want to argue, get offline. Don't argue online or go to a private room or whatever. I don't know what they got. Don't argue. I know a lot of people, your generation, a lot of younger generations aren't using Facebook. I don't know what you're using, but I find it hilarious. I had cousins that used to curse out their mothers that were my aunts. I mean, the stuff that the family would argue about on Facebook, it was amusing, but not too smart. So fight in private, face to face as well. Fight, go solve the conflict in private, because right off you'll save face. And if you're watching the videos on politeness, you know that's part of politeness. You must save face. If you don't know what that means, simply put, you can't make the other person look like an idiot. So when you're arguing, trying to solve conflict, the other person might be wrong. It might end up looking like an idiot. You don't want others seeing that. They're your idiot, not everybody's idiot. You don't want to embarrass your partner. Uh, Conflicts arise at bad times, but you choose when to resolve them. One more time. Conflicts will arise whenever, but you choose when you're going to resolve this. Uh, Educated people will be in a line at Dwayne Reed and something will start a conflict and they might start arguing and one partner will look at the other and say, not here, not now. That's what that means. Not right here, not now. Wait till we get home. Another couple will start that argument in Dwayne Reed right in line and start a huge argument. Everybody's looking at them going, wow, look at that couple. So you can't control when the conflict occurs if it happens in the middle of a Dwayne Reed line, but you certainly can choose the time to resolve it. Uh, so you want to know that. Fight about problems that you can solve. This is still with setting the stage. Um, Past behaviors You can't solve. They're done. They're gone. You can talk about them and you can ask for explanations, but if you're arguing about something in the past, I know it sounds tricky because I said you need to resolve it, but once it's resolved, move on. Don't go back and start arguing about stuff that happened in the past. You won't be able to solve those. In other words, if you're still whining about something that you missed out on because your partner got something instead and you had to sacrifice, that's not a problem you can solve anymore. It's gone. It's done. Um, Family members. You can't fight about family members. If you want to spend your whole time with your partner arguing about his stupid brother-in-law or about her stupid sister, you're wasting your time. You're not going to solve that problem. That's their behavior. It's family members. Fight about things that can be resolved. Uh, I find this constantly in our meetings at work. There are some things that our department can do, and there's some things that are beyond our control. In other words, our raises, how many hours a week we work, are beyond our control. But instead of focusing on our problems in our department, we spend a lot of time in our meetings talking about our how much money we're making, about how many hours we're working, how we can change that. We can change that. I mean, they'll say, yes, we can with protests and stuff. That's our union. In our department meeting, we're wasting a lot of time talking about problems that aren't up to us. We can't solve those problems. They're beyond our control. I can't solve that your brother is drunk. I can't do that. Why are you bringing that conflict into this family? So that's what we're talking about. So concentrate on problems that can actually be solved. All right. After you set the stage, you know the conflict. You've set the stage. You're both in decent moods. You both realize you love each other. Now let's talk about what happened last night and make sure it doesn't happen again. Um, you're if it's a content issue, that's easy. I don't like pillows. Sheila has pillows. Sheila buys pillows. Sheila buys carpet. Sheila buys throw rugs and pillows. Things that Crate and Barrel and Pier, whatever, Pier 9, 14. I don't even know what Pier it is, but there's some Pier out there that sells pillows and throw rugs and stuff. It drives me crazy. It causes conflict. Uh, that's an easy one. We can compromise on it. We have. If she loves me, she will not put the pillows where I have my workspace. Let me have my own space. Keep your pillows there. The carpets. I used to trip over the throw rugs. I said, when I'm 80, I'm going to die. You're going to kill me with these throw rugs. Now we make sure that she buys things that stick them down where you can't trip over them. Uh, she tells me at times, I've got a telescope that's just huge. She's like, would you mind putting the telescope there? These are content issues. Very, very easy to solve. Very easy. Instead of just lashing out at each other. Uh, Relationship issues, you got to go a little deeper. You've got to define the specific issue, not in abstract. If you sit there and you want to use your conflict management and just go, I feel that you don't love me. I feel that, well, you know what? I feel you don't give me enough attention. Yeah, we nowadays it's a little trick. Uh, People are saying, instead of telling people you don't appreciate me, because then they say they can go, I do. Uh, Instead, you say, I feel you don't appreciate me. And when you go, I do, they go, well, I don't feel that, and you can't argue with the way I feel. Okay, I feel like I'm a pigeon. You can't argue with the way I feel, right? Well, let me go try to fly off my balcony. It's not going to be too good. Uh, you in conflict management, you can't sit there and talk in the abstract. You can't say, well, I feel like you don't love me anymore. You have to give specific examples. I mean, you might want to start off that way, but if the person says to you, well, what do you mean? And you go, well, I just feel like you used to love me and now you don't. Well, what do you mean? Well, you used to pay a lot of attention to me, but now you don't. Well, what do you mean? Well, I feel like you don't love me much anymore. What do you mean? Well, the other day we're at a party, and I know when we first met, you used to be by my side at parties. Now, last night when we went to the party, you were with me for the first minute, then you went off talking to your friends, blah, blah, blah. The guy might go, well, I didn't realize that. Really? I didn't think that was going to bother you. Well, it normally doesn't, but the day I really didn't feel like talking to people. But, well, I didn't know that. You should have told me. You see the way this works? You see the way it works when you get specific. If somebody just sits and says, I feel you don't appreciate me, I feel enough already, enough. But if somebody really says, last night you ba 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 ba, really? Why would you? I didn't think it mattered to you. Well, it does matter to me. Well, why didn't you say anything? Because I felt like I would look like a baby. Well, you wouldn't look like a baby. Well, but I mean, this is the way that you solve the conflict, and everybody's happy. And then we all have cake. All right. So define in specific, not in abstract. Don't say you're cold. You're cold and unfeeling. I'm. You just called me cold and unfeeling, and now you expect me to sit here and have a nice, calm conflict resolution with you after you just called me cold and unfeeling. Used to be a song. You don't send me flowers anymore. That's the way. And so instead of saying, you know what, you're cold to me, you just say, you know what, how come you don't call me at work anymore? What do you mean? You used to give me a call at work, like around lunchtime. You used to cheer me up. Now you don't. You don't call me. Well, I don't know. I thought after a while, after 10 years, I thought we were kind of used to each other. Still like the call. If this person loves you, they're gonna go, oh, okay. Boom. That's the way it's done. Really, it's that simple. Um, so yeah, define specifically. Avoid gunny sacking. What gunny sacking is you and some people woo. Some people know how to do this. They do this on purpose. They might actually say stuff like, I got to pause 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Sheila just called me to tell me that she weighed our cat. So if anybody's interested, our cat Rupert weighs 14.8 pounds. Uh, a fat cat, if you ask me. All right, what was I talking about? Gunny sacking. All right, gunny sacking is when, and some people do this on purpose. In fact, once again, sitcoms reflect our real life. Art reflects life and imitates life and all that stuff. Um, Sometimes, like, the husband might do something bad to the wife, and then the wife's girlfriend says, oh, are you going to give it to him? And the wife says, no, I'm going to save it when I need it. Okay, and sorry, I'm using a wife. A husband can do that too. That's gunny sacking. So gunny sacking is kind of like going through the month, and instead of yelling about stuff or resolving conflict as it occurs, you put it in a gunny sack, and then you wait. And then when you have an argument and you're really pissed off, you say, "Hang on a second. Yeah, well, what about last Tuesday when you blah blah blah? What about last Thursday when you blah blah blah? What about last Friday? But wow, whoa, that's a bad relationship. Those conflicts should have been resolved on Tuesday, on Thursday, and on Friday. And I can't remember. I can't believe I remembered the names of the week I gave. Yeah, that's called gunny sacking. Avoid it. It's not right. If anybody pulled out a gunny sack on me and started saying, "Well, what about last week?" I would simply say, "We're not talking about that now. We're talking about this." It's a real good way to throw somebody, especially if they're wrong, and you start doing conflict management about the one conflict that just happened, and they reach into their gunny sack and they start throwing stuff at you. That flips the whole thing. I won't argue with a person like that. I just say, "Whoa, now you're talking about stuff that we could talk about that later if you want, but right now we're going to talk about this." No wonder everybody hates me. Uh, Another thing, empathize. All right, so what do we got? Let's stay on page here. You want to conflict management. You want to set the stage. You want to define the conflict. Remember in specific terms what is the conflict. Next, you want to empathize. Empathize. I could go on about empathy and about when you're arguing with somebody, uh, how you could empathize. Usually, we don't empathize until the other person starts crying. And then all of a sudden, we feel sorry for them. It's very hard to empathize with a person that you're arguing with. But it's easier in a relationship because I'll tell you what, the bottom line is I love this person. That's how you empathize. I do not want to hurt this person. I do not want to look into their eyes and see hurt. So therefore, let me back off. Let me not gunny sack. Let me not call names. Let me not hurt the person. Let's really try to solve this conflict with the person I love so we can move on down Cherry Lane and start enjoying the rest of our life. Empathize. Last one, avoid mind reading. You don't know what the person's thinking. You don't know why they did it. I always think I do. I always go, "Well, they did it because of this." And then the person talks to me, they're going, "What are you talking about?" So, be careful. Ask for explanations. I love an example I give my students about how to handle somebody if they're late. And all my students start off, I would say to them, ba, 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 ba. And I always got to say, why don't you first ask them why they're late? Ask for an explanation. They might have one. If they do, then you save face by not looking like a big ogre. It looks like you actually empathize with them. If they don't have a good excuse, then go crazy. But same thing, avoid mind reading. Ask them, what the hell were you thinking? And then shut up and let them explain themselves. All right. Uh, Now that you've got all that going, now what are your goals? What are the goals that you want? Are you trying to avoid breaking up? Do you want greater freedom to see other people? Or do you want to kiss and make up? You got to define your goal. I was just dealing with some people that talked to me, a couple talked to me for about 3 hours on 3 different occasions, and I pretty much knew their whole goal was to break up. Now, usually I would have said right off the hand, like, you guys, your goal is to break up. Why don't you just break up? Uh, but I wanted them to play it out because I knew they're young. They needed permission to break up. They needed somebody older, I don't know, wiser, to tell them, yeah, you guys are right. You should break up. But there's a lot of people that are arguing, uh, and their goal is eventually to break up. You could expedite that. You could make that happen real quick. So I mean, that's one of the first things in huge conflicts you should ask. Like, all right, so what do you want to do? Do you want to end this or do you want to go? If the person says, end this, what the hell are you talking about? Go, yeah, I know. I wanted to make sure. So, next, so identify what your goals are. If you do want to solve it, you've already identified what the conflict is. Now evaluate your choices. So you don't like my friends, all right? You don't want my friends in the house. They piss you off and they're very annoying. You want me to quit seeing my friends? I want to have my friends over to the house. What is the resolution to this? Well, it's the compromise. All right, I'm still going to see my friends, but I won't bring them to the house. And both people have to be willing to give a little bit. Everything can be compromised somehow, some way. Uh, yeah, remember what I said a long time ago. I said that you have to know that your partner has a life outside the relationship. So let's say Pat and Chris always go to a party and Pat has friends that Chris doesn't like. Well, you know what? Chris doesn't have to go to the party with Pat because it's just going to cause problems. Just stay home. You'll be better off. How many people drag their partner to events where their partner doesn't want to go? Well, that's nice of them to go. They're compromising as long as they go and be nice. But if you're going to go and just be a pain in the butt, then don't go. And we're happy. That to me is a win-win. I finally found a win-win. Yeah, a lot of times Sheila will turn to me and say, do you want to go? And I'll say, you know what? I really, really don't. I should say, stay home. There's a win-win. Yes, finally, I found a win-win. Find the choice and then act on it. But before you act on it, so let's say Pat says, all right, I want to go to that party. I know you don't like my friends, so you don't have to go. And Chris says, that's cool. You go by yourself. Now, Chris mentally has to think that out. Because if Chris sits there and thinks about Pat going to the party, are you cool that there might be other women or men there that are going to communicate with your partner? Are you sure you're not going to have any jealousy? Are you sure you trust the person? Are you sure of all that? So a lot of time, okay, so you want to go, we're going to go to your mom's this Christmas and we're going to go to my mom's next Thanksgiving. You better mentally think that out before you go cool, because Christmas is a little bigger than Thanksgiving in a lot of families. So you've got to mentally think. Just don't say, all right, we'll try this. Really visualize it and see if that will work. If it does work, great. Evaluate. Accept it. If it didn't work, reject it. Find another deal. It's the old thing. Identify, look for solutions, try the solutions, evaluate the solutions. If it works, wrap it up. It's done. If it doesn't work, go back to step whatever, 4. Look for other solutions until you find one that works. All right. That is all I have. Oh, great. And we're right on 58 minutes. All right. For all of you who are subscribing, I love it. Thank you very, very much. Feel free to share the link because I'm not on really anything, so I can't really spread these lectures out. So if you like what you see and you think it's helping you and it might help somebody out, attach it to your social media and I would appreciate it as well. All right, that's it, guys. Until next time, yabba dabba do. Solve those conflicts, don't gunny sack, and be nice to one another. And that's it. Yabba dabba do. See you guys later.